Hi, I'm Birgit O'Connor, and today what I'd like to do is show you how to create some mountain fog. That fog in the valleys and have that mountain ridge stand out. So first of all, I'm going to take a little piece of Arches paper and I'm going to create a wash over it. I'm going to take some water. My water has a little tint in it, so you're going to be able to see where I apply the water and how much water I'm using. And then I'm going to take my number 20 blend, and I'll take a little French Ultramarine blue and a little burnt sienna. What I'm looking for is a nice gray color. And I want a lighter value, so I'm just going to take it out here and add more water to it. And I'm going to go ahead and drop some of this color in. And you can see the amount of water that's on the surface and how it's moving. So I'm pretty much going to work just in values. We have a big dry area there, so all I have to do is take a Hake brush and cover that up. Okay. And I'm thinking, gosh, maybe I want to make it actually bluer, a bluer sky with the mountains below. So I'm going to add a little more French Ultramarine blue in there. I'm holding my paper at an angle so the color can run. And even by holding it this way, I can create some clouds that way. I'm going to hold it up like that and let it move. And then now what I have to do is let it dry. Okay, so now I have this wash. This wash is dried, and what I'm going to do is add my first row of mountains. And this is a beautiful area to be in the Blue Ridge Mountains and to create this little tiny simple demonstration. So all I need to do is I have my same color mix as I did in the sky, and I'm just going to take some of my color, move it over to the side, and use more water and increase this lighter value. And if I wanted to, actually, I want to show you something of how I hold the brush. Is that if I go like this, let's say I want to create a mountain like that. You can see how it has a very straight edge to it. And let's say I want this to be some fog. All I need to do is take a larger brush. This is a number 30, and I'm just going to soften that bottom edge. That's going to be one way we'll do it. If you can tell, the top part of the brush is creating that very smooth line. Now if I wanted more of an irregular edge, all I need to do is turn my paper around, and it's upside down. And then I'm going to go ahead and I'm holding my brush. Do you see how I'm holding it? I'm actually pressing down on my brush and dragging it across the surface. So it's a little drier along the top. I'll turn it back around. And you can see how this has an irregular edge up here. That helps to give the impression of trees in the background instead of it being so deliberate and straight. And then what I'll do is take my number 30, get rid of the excess water, and then just soften that bottom edge to create fog. So let's apply it into this little wash. I'm going to straighten out my paper. I'm going to take my number 20. This is a blend, round. Get a little more color in my palette, French Ultramarine blue and burnt sienna. And I want a lighter value, so I'm going to go over to the side with my water. I'm going to turn it upside down. Actually, how about if I pencil in something so I get a better idea of where I want to go with it. So I'm thinking I'll have my big mountain down here, another mountain down here, down there. And usually if I do mountains, I like to do 3, 5, odd numbers. Okay, so for this mountain range way back here, I want that to be the lightest. Now, usually you're thinking, oh, I'm going to fill in the first mountain, the second mountain, and the third. But what happens, then you end up having overlapping color. So I'm going to take my lighter value, turn it around. Actually, I'm going to switch over to a 14 brush. And the reason why I'm switching over to a number 14 is because it's a small mountain range. And I'm going to go ahead, this still has a little pink in it. I'm just going to go ahead and just go along that mountain range. I want it to be light and fill that in. You can see it over there. It doesn't matter if I'm in the lines or not, you're going to get the idea. And then I'm cleaning off my number 30. I'm just going to soften that bottom edge. Sometimes I can wait for this to dry a little bit more, and if I really want fog back there, I can take clean water. I'll take my number 8 here, and I can even drop in a little more water, and it's going to create a blossom, an intentional blossom, which will give me the impression of fog. You won't be able to see it yet until it starts to dry, because the surface is going to be different. It's going to be drier on the top and wetter on the bottom. So I have to wait for that to dry for just a second. Okay. It's really interesting to try to do those intentional blossoms, because a lot of times we're always like, no! But you can use them to your advantage. So now I'm going to dry this, and then I'll work on the next one. Okay, so now I have this little mountain range back here. I'm going to work on the second mountain range. And what I think I'm going to do is still use my number 14. I'm going to increase the value of my color so it's slightly darker than the mountain range in the back. See how it creates those little tiny trees back there by turning it upside down? And I'll turn it back this way. And then I'm going to soften the color. I'm going to bring it down here, but I'm thinking I'd like to have a little fog right in there. So, just thinking if I had color still on this brush. I'm going to go back to my number 14 for just a moment, let that dry for just a second. I'll create this second ridge. Maybe I want to make it go up a little more. Okay, so this line is dry, so I want to soften it. I don't think I like that as much there. Then I'm going to go ahead, I have a little bit of color still left in that brush. Don't mean to, and then I'm just going to soften this up. You can see that little tiny blossom that's happening. You don't have to have the blossom there if you don't want it, but it'll create that impression of fog. Then I'm going to let that dry for just a moment. So now I have my mountain range in the back, I have my middle mountain range, and I'm going to go into the front here. So I'm going to increase the value. I'm going back into the same color mixture, and since I'm using the French Ultramarine Blue and Burnt Sienna, they're sedimentary colors and they have a tendency to separate. I don't want to just go back into one side. I want to really mix it up on my palette, otherwise it's going to be either too blue or too brown. And then again, I'm going to turn it around. And I'll just and I'll turn it back around so I can have a better look at it, and maybe clean a little bit of that up if I want it to be a little straighter. Do you see how much straighter that is? And if you want to have that little impression of trees, it's better to turn that paper around. Okay, and actually I'm going to do this. I think that might be interesting. So I could leave it like this and have a hard edge. That's one way to do it. Or if I want a softer fog, I'm going to go ahead and take my number 30, get rid of some of that extra water, then I'm going to go along that bottom line and soften that. I do like that hard edge in there, so I'm debating whether or not I want to get rid of that. And just soften this a little bit. And that's basically how I would proceed and create this little mountain range. And being up here at Cheap Joe's, it's absolutely wonderful. I get to see this as I'm traveling around, and I feel so lucky to be here. Thank you. Happy painting.